Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 41 of the Computer Business Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Kabuto. Bring customers back to your repair shop with Kabuto by Repair Tech. To learn more, head over to kabuto.io. This episode is also brought to you by Ninja MSP. Ninja MSP's vision is to deliver an amazing next-generation RMM experience with best-in-breed integration of the products you love to use. To learn more, go to ninjamsp.com. In today's episode, we have Marvin Bee of maninthevan.net talking with us about the importance of investing in the proper tools for your computer business. Also, Paco talks about the tools he's invested in. We announced the winner of the survey drawing and read through some of the responses. And in the toolbox, we have a great service that can help you better track and manage your time. All that and so much more coming up right now.
Welcome to the Computer Business Podcast, where you'll learn how to start and grow your own successful computer business. And now, here's your friendly neighborhood computer guy, Matthew Rodella.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 41st episode of the Computer Business Podcast. I am Matthew Rodella, aka your friendly neighborhood computer guy.
And I'm Paco LeBron.
And this is the podcast where you can learn to start and grow your own computer business. You can find all the links mentioned in this episode at computerbusinesspodcast.com/episode 41. While you're there, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcatcher using the links provided. Also on that page, in the sidebar, you can subscribe to the Your Friendly Neighborhood Computer Guy newsletter, a monthly digest of tips and tricks for growing your computer business. When you sign up, you'll also get a free copy of my ebook, 20 Things You Can Do Right Now to Improve Your Computer Business. The book contains 20 practical tips to help you take your computer business to the next level. All that for free as our way of saying thanks for being a listener and a subscriber. You can also follow us on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and LinkedIn. We have links to all the social media profiles on the show notes page as well. So welcome, folks, to the 41 episode of the Computer Business Podcast. As always, I am joined by my esteemed co-host, Paco LeBron. How you doing, Paco?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
Doing excellent, excellent. First of all, happy birthday, man. Your birthday's coming up this week, so happy birthday.
Appreciate it. Yeah, when this episode airs, when we get that going, if it's Tuesday, birthday's over on Wednesday, the 17th. So I share this birthday with famous celebrities such as Michael Jordan. So
nice. All right, you're in good company.
Yeah. So it's going to be pretty interesting this week. I took the week off to sort some things out and hopefully get a good head on some business stuff.
Good. Yeah, it's tough when you're running a business full time because you never get like an entire day, an entire work day, or unless it's the weekend, of course, or you know, some time to actually sit down and work on the business. And feels like you're always kind of putting it off to the side or doing it when you have time here and there. So yeah, it's good to be able to take some time off from the day job to do some work stuff for sure.
Yep, exactly.
So today you are interviewing Marvin Bee, and you guys are talking about the importance of investing in your business and specifically like, you know, getting good tools and stuff like that. You want to give us a little sneak preview of what you guys talk about?
Yeah. So basically, as you mentioned, I interviewed my good friend Marvin Bee over at MB Systems, or as everyone now knows him as the Man in the Van. And basically what we are doing is what we talked about is understanding how to make that step on investing in your business by getting the right tools to help you out. So whether it be helping you out in time, helping you get more money, or just being able to just make things a little bit easier and a particular task that you may be doing. So that's go ahead.
And I know like folks, you know, are, especially when they're first starting up, they're worried about, you know, saving money and trying to get free tools or trying to, you know, really find the best bang for their buck with tools. And I guess you guys talk a little bit about, you know, that's good maybe when you're first getting started, but you have to kind of shift your mindset once you start running your business and kind of think of tools as an investment.
Right. And you hit it right on the head because it's exactly that. The reason why I wanted to interview Marvin in this interview was for the people who are starting out that are cost conscious. You know, they have to understand that eventually they will have to make that jump. But on the flip side, it was also done this interview for the people that have been in business for 20, 25 years that have still operated in that mindset. They may be in this one-man shops, and they're probably still running everything of free tools that aren't necessarily meant to be ran for business use. So that's why we talk about in this an interview specifically about those type of key points, and especially investing in tools, physical tools, hardware that will essentially help you get toward where you want to go. And so it helps you realize you can get to where you want to go faster by investing upfront. And it's a big saying that I always like to say, not to cut you off, but it's you always want to pay your dues upfront because you always have to pay double later.
Nice. Yeah. And I mean, we're professionals and we should be using professional grade tools in our businesses and have them in our arsenal. In fact, we should be using the best tools that are available because, when we show up on site or at a job, we want to represent the best of the breed, the best that's possible. And we don't want our tools to let us down. And I think Marvin talks about, his tools have saved him from, or have, presented him in a good light against maybe other people who have come in the business claiming to be experts or claiming to have a solution to a problem, and they're not using the best tools. And then he comes in and he kind of blows them away with what he's using. And it just speaks to the professionalism of your business if you can have the best tool for the job.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, credibility is everything. And that's the big thing about what we talk about is how to make sure that you're not just the Craigslist tech $50 an hour. And again, I mean this in the areas that charge more than that. If you're charging $50 an hour because your region calls for it, that's a whole nother story. But I'm referring to like here in Chicago, for us, $50 an hour is a cheap hourly service that you get from Craigslist to $25, et cetera. And they're using the free version of TeamViewer. They're using home products when they should be using business products. And, and they've been around for, like I mentioned, 20, 25 years. It's one of those where this really helps you understand that there are more cost-effective options out there that better represent your business. And it also gives you that credibility as well.
Cool. And I know you've been doing the same thing in your business, investing in some new tools. What have you been looking into?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with as far as the cool things I got, and then as far as some of the stuff that I did for the business. So as you mentioned, my birthday's this week, so I ended up getting myself 2 new early birthday gifts. I got the Google LG Urbane smartwatch, and I also got the new Nexus 5X for the point of getting on Google Fi. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the smartwatch helps out when I'm at a client and I have it hooked up to my phone, and I can gradually just look at my watch and being able to see if any notifications come in, if any calls come in, and I can still maintain that professional representation by just glancing over at the watch rather than pulling out my phone every single time. Nice. But at the same point, I also get those notifications. I can do a lot of great things with the watch itself, and it helps me get to certain items that I would have to normally unlock my phone and go through the apps, where the watch makes it a little bit more of an easier interface for me to go ahead and do.
Plus, I feel like, the people want to see their computer guy using the latest technology, and they want to see their computer guy with a smartwatch and stuff. And that just kind of adds to the credibility, or whatever you want to call it, of you being the tech guy and you knowing what the latest stuff is. And I think that helps.
Right. And then the reason why I picked the LG Urbane was because it actually looks like a watch. And the great thing about it is when a notification comes up and they look at the face of the watch, it looks like a real watch. And then once they see the notification come up, that's when they kind of throws them off saying, hey, that's one of those smartwatches. So
nice.
It's actually really, I love it. It's one of the great, big, nice gifts that I got. And then the reason why I got the Nexus 5X and upgraded from my 5 was because I wanted to get on the Google Fi network. And currently our business account is with T-Mobile. But I really love the Google Fi experience. I love how they're doing things over there on the way their billing works, and how they would credit the data that you don't use back to your bill that's unused. And just as having a second phone and just making sure to be cost conscious, I want to try out their network and see as far as the connectivity and just all about what it has to offer. So I love the phone. The network is working out pretty good. I'm in the process of transferring the number over from T-Mobile, and I'll keep you guys updated on that to see if they'll be able to port over a business number on a business account over to Google Fi, because right now Google Fi can only do individual numbers. But That's basically on those personal sides. But
and Google Fi is like their cell service.
Correct. So Google Fi is basically their phone service, similar to T-Mobile, AT&T.
Is that
Verizon.
Available everywhere?
It's currently by invitation only. I don't know as far as what regions they have it in. I know they do offer international plans. I don't know if it's available internationally, but I know it is invitation only right now, and you have to have a Gmail account in order to apply for an invitation.
Cool.
So, and they allow you to do that for their phone, and allows them to do it on the tablet as well. So, and they use the T-Mobile and Sprint networks, from my understanding. So whichever one has the stronger signal, it'll flip over to that one. Derek over at FireLogic had really spoke a lot about this on a podcast he was on another network. So I figured I'd try it out and go from there. And the reason why I bring up Derek is because he also mentioned about the tool that I purchased as well called the DataVac. And the DataVac is basically a miniature version of what people would usually use a leaf blower to blow out any type of dust from a particular laptop, MacBook, or inside of a desktop. And the reason why it's so great is because it's so portable, and you can just load that guy into your trunk when you go on site to a business, and let's say their computer is just completely just gunked up and all that sort of deal. You can literally take it outside, plug it into one of the outlets inside the building, and drag that big cord all the way outside and blow that sucker out and bring it back in. And it's as powerful as a leaf blower. So it's been really cool.
That way you're not like lugging around a leaf blower.
Right, exactly. Right,
clients,
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where now you can offer this as, if you're offering a cleaning service, as part of your maintenance plan, you can always bring this guy around and blow out.
Physical cleaning, yeah.
Yep. And it was only like, I think it was somewhere like $50-$60 at most. And what I was able to do, and it cuts down on getting those compressed air cans all the time.
Right.
So
nice.
It really helped out. It was really cool. I got that. It works great. And that's what we kind of did with that. We also went ahead and purchased a couple of other things. We did. I upgraded to a new toaster. And this was before. This was after I did the interview with Marvin, and I ended up figuring out that I purchased the wrong toaster. And but there's a couple toasters that we'll talk about later on that are really cool. But I got a StarTech dock that has 2 hard drive bays that allows me to kind of do 2 hard drives better than one with the eSATA cables. Nice. And other than that, we invested in a lot of software and new tool kits as far as like screwdrivers and things like that, because I updated my new my office setup, and I got a couple of new tables, and I got a couple of new not dress drawers, but cabinet drawers that fit underneath the table. So I basically bought a second set of all my tools and put them all in those drawers. So now I have a travel box that I go around with those tools, and now I have something here set up in the office, at the home office, so I don't have to keep lugging this thing back and forth in case I forget it in the truck. So a lot of those, recovery software like Get Data Back and SIW was another software we went ahead and got. It's similar to the total inventory tool that we mentioned way back in a couple of other episodes, where this thing will take inventory of a particular computer to help you better assess exactly what you're doing for a survey for a client. So those are a couple things and a mouthful of what we've gone ahead and invested in, and that's what we're trying out, and it's working really well for us.
Yeah, as a mobile tech, going out on location places, it's almost like you need a second office or a second workbench in your car. So you can have, all the tools you need in your car to come out and fix something. But yeah, you don't want to be lugging that back and forth, because then, maybe one day you're in a rush and you leave it at home or something. And that's why, when I did that kind of stuff, I always had a separate bag in the car, and it stayed in the car. It never left. That way I wouldn't, accidentally leave without it or something like that. Or I'd have one tool at home, but then I forgot to bring that one tool.
Exactly.
So speaking of investing, I did a little bit of investment myself. I mean, this is the year of growth, right? That is our theme for this year. So what I've done is there's as you know, I'm doing WordPress consulting now, and there's a business accelerator course that's specifically designed for WordPress consultants. And so that's really cool. And talk about niching, right? Like there's a specific, course out there specifically for WordPress consultants. So I signed up for that. It's not cheap, but it's basically 6 weeks of classes, video classes that you take. You take the video classes, and then you have homework, and then there's a live conference call every week where all the students get together and talk about the modules they went through, and it's really cool. It goes through everything from, setting up your website with the proper pages and the right kind of intake forms and stuff. It talks about how to choose and filter the right kind of clients. So first of all, one of the things they mentioned is you look for potential clients through your own network. You never try to get cold clients just coming from random places. You go through your network, people you know. They talk about how to get referrals and how to prod people to give you referrals. And then they come in as warmer leads that way. And then you have a second set of filtering where through the process of the questions you ask them in a form that they have to fill out, you first of all let them know that you're serious. And then you also get to get some information from them to figure out if they're someone you really want to work with. So it's really, and that's as far as I've gotten so far. And then there's going to be a bunch of other modules about, setting up proposals and then how to take care of the client afterwards and how to position your services and position yourself as an expert. So I think a lot of this stuff I'm going to take away that's going to help you guys listening, just really good best practices around offering services, whatever those services might be. So I'm looking forward to learning some good stuff and applying it to my business, and then bringing it back to you guys and helping you out with your businesses as well. So that's going to be exciting, and I'll keep you guys updated. But so far, the course has been great. It's really put together really well. It's really slick, and I'm learning a lot. So whatever I learn, hopefully I'll be able to bring back to you guys so you can learn it as well. Before we jump into the rest of the show, I got some housekeeping here. First of all, a lot of you guys might have heard about this, but if you haven't, I'm going to mention it here as well. It's the folks over at Bleeping Computer have been hit with a lawsuit from the folks at Enigma Software, who are the makers of Spy Hunter. And the reason they're trying to sue Bleeping Computer is because of just a negative review in their forums. And it's an honest review. It's not slanderous. It's basically just talking about why people don't like Spy Hunter. And as a result, they're getting sued. And so Bleeping Computer is fighting back. They're asking for donations to help them fight back. And not only that, but we're also just kind of mentioning this to bring awareness to this and to kind of put pressure on Spy Hunter just in the court of public opinion, and let people know that they're using these tactics, these heavy-handed tactics, to try to squelch any kind of negative talk about them. So this isn't just a lawsuit. This is like a freedom of speech thing, and we don't want to let folks like this get away with stuff like that. So go to bleepingcomputer.com, and they have a pop-up there that talks about the lawsuit and how you can contribute. And I just encourage you guys to go check it out and see if it's something that you'd like to support. We here at YFNCG definitely support the cause of that Bleeping Computer is doing and what they're trying to do there. So definitely go check that out.
Yeah, and especially with as far as what Matt's saying, if you can't contribute monetarily, spread the word. And this is one of those where, like he mentioned, us as techs are trying to do our due diligence on understanding what's out there and what software to go ahead and try out. And if we can't post on a forum to try and get honest feedback on software that we may be considering, it has to be us as a responsibility as the technicians to understand what's going on with our customers. And for good or bad, whether the opinions of Spy Hunters as Enigma Software is going on with this lawsuit, it's one of those where, for the freedom of just having an honest opinion, defending the freedom of speech and being able to say that, we really want to make sure that we spread the word for this lawsuit of Bleeping Computer that's going on.
Well put. So check that out, bleepingcomputer.com. Also, I wanted to mention the Kabuto contest is still going on, and it ends on the 19th, which if this comes out on Tuesday, which it should, will be this coming Friday. So you still have time. There's still very few people who have taken part in the contest. So your chances of winning are very good. Again, it's you're going to get a free year of the growth plan for Kabuto. And all we need to do is hear about how you would integrate Kabuto into your service offerings and leave a comment with the answer to that question in the show notes page for this episode, which is computerbusinesspodcast.com/episode 41. That's all you got to do. And then we'll pick a winner from the few responses we got. So it's going to be a good chance for you to win a free year of Kabuto service. And then finally, in lieu of emails today, I wanted to go ahead and talk about the survey results. Last podcast or the podcast before, I believe I mentioned that we had a survey that we'd like you guys to fill out to let us know kind of where you're at in your business, what you're looking for help with in your business. And we got a lot of great responses from that. So first of all, we did say that we would have a random drawing for a $25 Amazon gift card. And we do have a winner for that. And the winner is, drumroll, is atruex1 at gmail.com. ATRUEX1 at gmail.com. And this person won. I don't know who it is, but they're getting an email. They should have received an email by the time you read this with their gift card and congratulating them that they won. So what I wanted to do now, instead of reading some emails, is kind of talk about the responses we got from the survey. I thought it would be interesting for you guys to hear where some of your fellow technicians are at and what you guys are looking to do in your businesses. And I think that'll kind of help us all out here. So first I asked some questions about like how you heard of us and how you listen to your friendly neighborhood computer guy. And a lot of you, listen to the podcast or the newsletter, but most of you do both, which is great. And that's kind of what I do too, is I like to read certain information and I like to consume certain information, through podcast format. And so we're trying to give you guys all of that stuff. So however you like to consume information, we'll do that. Someone mentioned that they would like transcripts of the podcast so that they don't necessarily have an opportunity to listen to the podcast, or they prefer reading. And that's something we've thought about, but I looked into it and it is pretty expensive, especially because these podcasts can be pretty long, an hour to an hour and a half. That's a lot of words and that costs a lot to transpose. So, I'm open to any suggestions folks have on how to get the podcasts transposed. I know there are some automated ways to do it, but those aren't usually very accurate. So I don't want to go that route. I want to, have someone who can actually do the transcripts. So, if anyone wants to volunteer to do that, that would be great. But right now we just can't afford to hire someone to do it. But, who knows, maybe in the future, if we continue to grow as a podcast and get more folks listening and all of that stuff, then maybe we'd be to a point where we could get them transcribed. But just wanted to let you know that is something that is on my radar, and it's something I'd love to do as soon as we're able. All right. And then we get into the questions about your own businesses. So one of the questions I asked was, now speaking about your business, which of the below terms best describes your business? So I wanted to get an idea of what you call yourself. Do you call yourself a computer repair shop? Do you call yourself an IT services business? Do you call yourself an MSP? So on and so forth. And so the vast majority of you guys refer to yourself as a computer repair shop, which is interesting because a lot of you guys are just solo consultants. So even as a solo computer repair person, you still like to refer to yourself as a computer repair shop, which gives you kind of a more of like you have a storefront, or you have a shop that you work out of, and so that's good. So that 34% of you guys call yourselves computer repair shop. Second was computer consulting. So you say that you're a computer consultant, and that's what I chose when I started my business, to call myself a computer consultant. I felt that was more personal. I will be your consultant. I'll be the person who has your back as far as your computer and your IT goes. Paco, what do you prefer to call your business?
So in the beginning, I was considering myself as a computer repair shop. And that because of our 2 locations and a majority of our work was drop off repairs.
Right.
And but essentially, when I first started out, my thought was I was going to be a IT consultant. So it kind of transformed in the beginning, and then now as I make brace for my exit, it's going to be a combination of both. It's going to be a computer repair shop, and then we'll also have the IT consulting along with it. So it's going to actually be a hybrid approach as far as what we're seeing it, but we're going to start trying to really get into the mold of being IT consultants.
Nice. Yeah. And I think that's kind of part of the reason why I asked this question is I wanted folks to think about what they want to be known as and maybe focus in on one specific categorization. So because a lot of people, almost 20% of you said, well, we're kind of a combination of a bunch of those different things. And that's cool. But I would recommend that you kind of focus in on one of those things. Are you IT services? Are you an MSP? Are you a computer repair shop? It's okay to be any of those, but just pick one and try to decide why that's what you're calling yourself, and then focus your messaging around that. And that kind of speaks to what we talked about or earlier this year when we had the episode about what we're going to be concentrating on this year. And we talked about messaging, and you want to have consistent messaging across all of your marketing, across your interactions with your clients, and you always want to say, we are an IT services business, we are a computer repair shop, we're an MSP, so on and so forth. And so that's just something to keep in mind. And a lot of you guys consider yourselves a computer repair shop, and so that's cool. And that's good to know that's what you guys are referring to yourselves as. The next question was, where do you work primarily? So I was wondering, do you work at home? Do you work out of office space, or do you work out of a storefront? And a vast majority of you guys work from home, and that's cool. I think nowadays that's really the way to go, is to work out of a home office. So almost 70% of the respondents to the survey work from a home office. And then in second place with 13% is out of office space. So not necessarily a storefront, but more like an office in an office park or an office building. And I think that's good too. If some folks like to get out of the house and have a separate place where they can travel to and conduct business. And like Paco, who rents out the office space, have some place you can send clients that is more professional looking than just sending them to your home. So that's cool. And then only about 9% of you have an actual physical storefront. So that's interesting. That's less than I thought. But that's kind of a sign of the times, right? I think a lot of people can run a business out of their home. They don't necessarily need the added costs of running a full-fledged storefront. So that's good to know. That means we'll cater our content more to the home office and the virtual office kind of computer technician, rather than folks who have a storefront and that sort of thing. We won't ignore you guys, of course, but we're just looking where to focus our efforts on to help the most people who listen to the podcast and head over to yfncg.com. And then the big question here, I think probably one of the most important, was I asked you guys to rank in order what you're struggling with in your business. And I'll read through some of the top ones that you guys chose. So the top thing that you guys are struggling most with in your business is marketing. And I think I can relate, right? Marketing is a way to bring in clients, and it's something it's hard to figure out, especially if you're more technician minded. You want to fix computers. You don't want to worry about advertising and marketing and all of that stuff. So that's what you guys are struggling with most. And that's awesome, because that's a lot of the future podcast episodes we have lined up. Guests who can speak to that. We had some good guests in the past, and in the future we're going to have some other good guests to talk about marketing and how to market your computer business and some tips and tricks around that. So we're definitely going to be focusing on that more, especially now that we know you guys are struggling with that. Under that, in a close number 2 is getting new clients. And I think that goes hand in hand with marketing, right? You market to get new clients, and the way you get new clients is to market. So those go hand in hand. So I think with our focus on marketing, we're going to help you guys get new clients. Number 3 is cash flow, interestingly enough. So the third most thing that you guys struggle with the most is cash flow. So, we're going to look into finding some resources for you guys to help better manage your cash flow. So that means, balancing the income you receive with the expenses you have, finding a good balance with that. I think a way to find a good balance for that is really make sure you're maximizing your income, that you're earning as much as you can, that you're charging premium prices, that you're only taking on clients that are willing to pay recurring revenue, that kind of thing. And that kind of thing can take care of some of those cash flow problems. So hopefully we can help you by concentrating on how to get better clients, how to get recurring clients. And then fourth on the list is transitioning to managed services. So a lot of you guys, I know through some of the open-ended questions where we asked you what you're struggling with, you talked about wanting to transition to managed services, but not quite knowing how to do it or struggling with getting that transition. So we're going to definitely focus a lot on that this year as well, is the tools, the techniques, the processes you need to take your business from break fix to managed services, and how to bridge that gap and how to get to more of a recurring revenue type of situation. And so it's good to know that a lot of you guys are struggling with that. And I think that's something we can help you with. And then underneath that, tied for 5th place are things like time management, process automation, client retention, kind of the day-to-day, making your business run more smoothly type of things. And of course, we always try to help you with that with our toolbox segment in every podcast. And we're going to have a lot more posts on the blog talking about different services you can use to automate your processes and make your business more of a managed service type of business, manage your time. In fact, at the end of this episode in the toolbox, we have a time management app that Paco is going to talk about how to track your time and use that information to better manage your time. So I think we got you covered in a lot of these respects, and we're going to definitely concentrate on helping you out with a lot of this stuff as well. So this is great feedback. Paco, what would you say you're struggling with most in your business currently from some of those things that I mentioned?
I guess would probably be understanding how to market ourselves would probably be one of the big pieces of it. Understanding, and it's into the fact of, we've tried so many avenues and a lot of those had fell short. So now it's a matter of the trial and error in figuring out exactly what's going to stick. And what do we need to do to kind of make ourselves a little bit more scalable so we can meet the visibility mark on that.
Nice. Yeah. And that is the trick. And I think that's even big businesses struggle with that. So I think that's just going to always be an ongoing struggle, but it's good. It's a good thing to concentrate on because it's important and it can bring big results to your business if you really focus on that marketing and the message. A little sneak preview. We already have a bunch of interviews lined up for the podcast that we've actually already done. And the interview I did that's going to show up on episode 45 of the podcast. So that's a few episodes in the future, but stay tuned for episode 45 because I'm going to be talking with someone who has a lot of experience in marketing in other spaces besides IT. They now are a marketer in the IT space, but they came through the ranks marketing like products and startups and inventions. And he's going to talk about a lot of great a lot of great topics around marketing message, around what's effective, around all of that stuff. So it's going to be cool, and it's going to speak specifically to what you're struggling with, Paco, and what a lot of other folks are struggling with. So that's going to be episode 45. So stick around, stick around for that. In a little future, a little time travel there to let you know what's coming up in a future episode.
Yep. So make sure you're subscribed.
Exactly. All right. And then we had a couple open-ended questions. So one of the open-ended questions was, what aspects of your business are you looking to improve in 2016? And so we got a lot of folks saying stuff like getting better clients. And so I think that's kind of a recurring theme through a lot of people who responded to the survey. Someone said higher ticket average, make more money from the same number of clients. And I think that's a great goal to have, right? You don't want to necessarily be overwhelmed with a bunch of different clients that you're trying to chase around and keep track of. Instead, have a few clients, but have them be higher paying clients, better clients that are going to bring you in more money so that you don't need a lot of clients. That's kind of where I am with my business right now. I have a handful of clients that I have recurring services for, or they come back to me over and over again, that are doing, bigger projects, bigger paying projects that I can, concentrate on just that one project for a long time and not worry about getting little clients here and there. So that's something I'll definitely be able to help you guys out with. Better time management and better billing for that time. So that's going to be something we're going to talk about later today. Someone said managed services. I have a couple of clients on managed services along with another block of hours. I generally do a lot of break fix work, but I would like to generate more recurring revenue. I was able to finish out 2015 strong, and so far 2016 is off to a good start, but I want to continue to grow and build a strong client base. And so that I hear that a lot from you guys, that you're doing good, but you want to take it to the next level, and you feel the best way to do that is to get more into recurring services and managed services. We're going to help you with that. Someone said putting processes in place and time management. Running a business part-time is a big challenge, in trying to balance time between a job, family, and a business. You're trying to grow. Improving my time management skills is going to be key if I intend to now not only grow, but sustain what I have. I feel putting processes in place that I follow pretty strictly will help keep me and my business on track. Perfect. So we're gonna definitely address that. Processes, time management. And you mentioned you run a business part-time. That's one question I wish I would have asked in the survey that I forgot to, is how many of you guys are running a business part-time versus full-time? I have a feeling a lot of you guys are running your business part-time. And that's cool. I know some people who don't even want to run a business full-time. They're happy having a computer business on the side. And so trying to figure out how to balance that with your full-time job, with your family, it's going to be something we're going to tackle in the future as well. Looking to acquire more business clients. Someone said right now their residential clients are 85% and only 15% business. So I think a lot of what we talk about, finding the right kind of clients, focusing on the right kind of clients, making sure your marketing messages are speaking to those business clients is going to help. So you just want to really position yourself as the kind of business that will speak to business clients. Someone said they're struggling with, what they're looking to improve in 2016, smartphone repair. So that's good. That's a good niche to have. Someone said working for other companies to get more work experience. So this is someone who doesn't even have a business yet. And I know there are a handful of folks who listen to the podcast who are just, weighing their options and aren't even sure if they want to start a computer business yet. And so that's good to get that experience first. That's what we preach. So that's what some folks are looking to improve in 2016. And the last question was, how can YFNCG or the Computer Business Podcast help you meet your goals? And I just wanted to read a couple excerpts from that. Someone said, we can help you by defining the various options and career steps. So they said they got their their Cisco certification with the idea of getting a security certification next, but is that the right move? And there are so many paths, but they don't know how to proceed. So, as far as certifications are concerned, I mean, there's definitely no right path, right? It's whatever you want to be your service niche, then you focus on those type of certifications. So you talk about security. If that's something you want to focus your business on, then definitely work on getting your all of the different security certifications that are out there. Again, certifications aren't that big a deal. If you own a computer business, most customers don't care about certifications. They don't know what they mean. They don't know what they are. What it really is, the main reason for getting certifications is, number one, if you want to get hired somewhere, or number two, if you just want to improve your own knowledge of certain things. So really, you can do the training for the certification without actually, paying to take the certification test, and then you'll at least know, what the knowledge is behind those certifications. Okay, and then some kudos here. Someone said the podcast has been incredibly helpful, especially when it comes to managed services and dealing with clients while also juggling a full-time job. So this person is in the same boat as the other person. They run their business part-time. So that's good. And then someone else says, my business is part-time. Another person says this, my business is part-time and will probably remain that way for a while. I really enjoy the information you guys provide across the board, so please keep that up. I also think your format is perfect, so I wouldn't change a thing there. Paco's input on his personal business and his transition from part-time to full-time is of great interest to me, and that mirrors my situation the most. So please keep giving us those updates on that process. Aside from that, keep doing what you guys are doing. I've been a listener from the start. I think Paco coming on board has helped the podcast grow quite a bit because you guys have a great rapport and the podcast really flows well when you guys are talking. Thanks for all the work you put into it. So thanks for that. We're going to end on that. That's a positive note. We appreciate you guys taking the survey. We got a lot of great information from it, and we're going to be using this information to build better podcast episodes, write better blog posts, curate a better newsletter, all of this stuff to help you guys meet those goals that you have for 2016. All right, before we jump into the feature topic today, I wanted to mention our first sponsor, who is also a new sponsor of the podcast, and this is Ninja MSP. Ninja MSP has made a commitment to be the most powerful RMM in the marketplace with the absolute best user experience and to integrate with all of the products you love to use. And someone who knows that firsthand is Paco, who is a client or a customer of Ninja MSPs. So if you want to kind of tell us some of your experiences with using their product.
Yeah, sure. So with Ninja MSP, we're using the RMM platform. And the reason why we chose Ninja was because of the all-in-one dashboard idea that they have. They basically want to make sure that everything is baked in. You have one area to go to, and that's what you will need to do as far as everything you got to do in regards to managing your customer's PC, whether it be deploying programs, installing the antivirus, running automated scans, along with the Windows updates as well. And it really helped us out when we tried to figure out what was going to be the best offering for our residential clients. And what we did was we actually transformed, or packaged, I should say, the product for Ninja as our virus protection plan. And we are running it similar to what people would get as purchasing an internet security suite. And we would basically allow them to have a managed antivirus that we basically would take care of the scans and so forth. We would go ahead and do the managed updates for Windows updates, along with giving them a discounted rate for virus removals in the event that they were ever infected by manually clicking something or overriding a prompt that Ninja had prompted them on. So the interface is very slick, it's very simple. It often reminds me of when I was looking for a CRM solution and ended up choosing Repair Shopper because of their simplicity. It's kind of the similar thing with Ninja. You don't have to take an hour and a half to 10-hour courses to understand how to use the system. You really could probably deploy a client within 20 minutes of just going through on your own. So it's been really helpful for us. We've gotten a lot of traction with our residential customers, which is what we were looking for because that's a majority of our clientele. And deploying it to some of our small businesses has been really helpful on keeping track on the alerting that's sent out that you can set up and have out of the box as well.
Yeah. And so, Ninja says that they work with IT service providers that have everybody from the people just getting started who have a few customers, but it's built with industrial strength to handle providers that service thousands of customers. The Ninja platform is the result of thousands of MSPs' feedback and working closely with the product management teams of the major vendors that you guys use today. They've built a next generation platform with a community-driven product management process, all packaged with a reasonable price. So check out Ninja MSP at ninjamsp.com and tell them the Computer Business Podcast sent you.
Yep. And then one other piece just to add on there for those major vendors that I did forget to mention, they do integrate with quite a few of them. It's they got TeamViewer on board, Autotask, ConnectWise, and they're coming out with many more coming out as far as other integrations to it.
Excellent. All right, let's jump into the featured topic.
And now, the featured topic.
Hey everyone, I have none other than the man in the van himself, Mr. Marvin Bee over at MB Systems. Marvin, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic.
Great. Good to hear. Good to hear. So the reason why we wanted to get you on the show is basically you've been on the Podnuts Network quite a bit, and a lot of the key things that you mention really drive home to at least a lot of the listeners over there. And I really wanted our listeners to benefit from your experience from what you've done with your business. And kind of going into our topic for today is basically how to invest in your business, where a lot of technicians tend to be, or just business owners, trying to figure out what's their next step. They may be so in the thick of everything, they haven't realized to try and take a step back and really look at what they have and being able to see what they can do as far as their next phase in the business. So I guess how I want to go into it is kind of when you were starting out and kind of maybe what would be the scenario as far as what made you start to think on why investing in your business is so important to at least not only scale, but to survive with how we've been hearing about a lot of the techs going into business and not lasting more than 8 months?
Well, I think going back to when I started, I thought that it would be an easy transition to leave the shop that I was at and just simply start doing work just like I had done while I was at the shop. I did a lot of work after hours and on the weekends, and I thought it would be a lot of the same thing. But when you do it full time, you've got to fill not only your schedule with work, but you've got to make sure that you are filling your wallets with money. And so one of the things that I had actually started doing is every morning when I got up and got started, I would spend 1 to 2 to 3 hours on the computer doing my research with looking up parts, researching motherboards, researching networking stuff, because I knew that, I had to keep abreast of what was going on technology. The problem is I was on a dial-up connection. And we're talking 1997, and I at the time just had my dial-up, and it was cheap, and I thought that was the thing to do. Somewhere along the line, I realized I was spending way too much time in the morning doing this as opposed to getting out and getting business. And one of the things that I had read in one of the books is we always hear that time is money.
Right.
Well, time is also time. And the more time you can save doing certain tasks is time you can devote elsewhere. And most people equate that in the fact of trying to devote time into making money. But time and just simply being able to spend with your family, spend doing other things, rejuvenate, work on something else in the business. So that concept of time is time. How much time can you save in certain areas so that you can invest that time somewhere else? And so finally, I bit the bullet and bought DSL, which at the time was fantastic because it cut my research time from 2 to 3 hours down to 30 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, my goodness, I have wasted all this time, playing on the DSL, on the dial-up when I could have been on DSL. And, if I got up at 7:30, I could be out the door at 8 to my first appointment as opposed to 9 or 10.
Gotcha.
And I could get that one more appointment in per day, and that would translate to more money at the end of the year. So I took that concept and I just decided that I would do the same thing for every aspect of the business. Now, a lot of times we look at doing it with software. How can we speed up our virus removals? How can we speed up our automation? And, techs know about the D7 and the Fabs Auto Backup and all those programs that can speed up that stuff. But we always overlook the investment of products and hardware-based tools, and I guess the more expensive stuff. Because, Fabs, D7, repair tech, those are minor expenses compared to my flute tools that everybody hears me talk about.
Right.
And, people can get by with a $30 or $40 network tester. But what I found was it's hard for me to argue with a cable technician that his cable is bad when I don't have the proper tools to tell him why his cable is bad.
Right.
And that's what led me to get my first cable tester. And just so that everybody knows, it wasn't a fluke.
Now, what was it, by chance?
It was a Validator NT955 was the actual name of it. It was still a lot of money. It was $1,200.
Okay.
But what it did was it allowed me to show the same thing that the flute does. It showed me the cable and termination of each pins, showed me if there was a break in the cable or a cross or a split or whatever. But it allowed for me to be able to have that in a picture view that I could just simply hand to the tech and say, here's what's wrong with your cable.
Gotcha. So as far as and this is a big question that a lot of techs tend to kind of get themselves to is, where did you find yourself and I know you mentioned that it just got to the point where you're trying one scenario, talking to a cable tech on why they have a bad cable. So for some, like perfect example, I guess, and I'm assuming this is probably close to when you were starting up, when you first purchased this, the tool. For a lot of techs that thinking, wow, this is going to be a great tool that's going to help me out, but it's $1,200. What was it for you that made you the justification on I have to spend this $1,200 and I know for a fact this will help me? Like what was the two that connected to each other? Or was it just so many arguments with not being able to have any proof that kind of just caused you to say, I'm going to get this thing?
For that particular situation, it was my 4th or 5th time going out to deal with a computer that wasn't working at this one shop. And it was the same computer. And I actually had gotten to the point where I could say, I know it's not the computer, so it's got to be something else. And we had purchased a brand new switch.
Okay.
Which it wasn't a managed switch or anything like that. It was, $50 switch. But I had done that and ruled that out. And all that was left was the cable. I had changed out patch cables. I had done all this stuff. So I knew it was something. But my tester couldn't tell me. All it did was say, it was one of those testers that had the blinking light, that it showed either green or red, and they all kept showing green. And so I could never, tell the cable technician what the issue was. And, I couldn't charge for each of those trips that I went out to see that customer.
Right. Because you had originally assumed that it was something that you didn't take care of in the first service.
I was losing money every time I went out there. So that was frustrating. And the customer was losing money not being able to work with that computer. And this was a body shop that that computer was used to do estimates. And,
Oh, okay.
having to turn away a customer because you can't do an estimate just makes you look bad.
Right.
And so that customer was not happy. Of course, I'm not happy. It's making me look bad. So I just started researching, saying, what can I do to stop this? And I just looked at it, and it was $1,200 was a lot. And I said, you know what? I deal with enough cables that I should be able to test a cable and see whether it's good or bad, and present that to the technician. So I just did it.
Okay.
And you know what? The next day, cable technician was out. I showed him the picture. He looked at it and he goes, yep. So we went in and fixed the cable and no more issues.
Gotcha.
So I used that as my springboard to, you know what? I'm going to get the best tools that I can afford to deal with every scenario, whether it's cable testing or network analysis or, hard drive duplication or whatever, because I've got to be able to save that time dealing with customers and being able to show them what's right and what's wrong, dealing with other vendors, showing them what's right, what's wrong. Because, the time is money and time is time.
Right.
So either I'm saving money or I'm saving time. And me having to go back out, for an hour and a half every time wasn't saving me money, and it wasn't saving me time. So I ended up having to spend the money to save the time and make the customer happy.
Gotcha. So, and I know you've mentioned the key word there is that you ended up, you got to get the best tools that you can afford. As far as for yourself, what made you determine, you know what, this is something I can afford? Was this something that you were going to break the bank for, or something that you can leave comfortably, so that way you're going to get the best to what your means are and then go upgrade later on? Because I know you've mentioned how you said you used your first tool and didn't go all out with maybe a possible fluke that may be a lot more and that aspect of it. So, because a lot of people tend to see, like, for example, $1,200, and maybe that may just be too far out on their range. How can we as a tech, because, and Jeff talks about this a lot on the Podnuts Network, is as technicians, we tend to be cheap, plain and simple. And we don't think about investing in ourselves and are investing in the business to be able to, like you say, save time and save on as far as the lost money that we may be losing without having these particular tools. Is there anything that you had to do to kind of like, all right, I'm going to justify this because I need it, even though this may potentially break the bank? And the reason why I keep rephrasing this question is because I know a lot of techs out there will say, I just can't afford that. When they know they can, they just don't want to put the money out for it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, it took me a while to get there because, I looked at the amount of money as wow, how am I ever going to recoup that?
Okay.
Because it was easy for me to buy the $30 tester because I'm going to recoup my money on that pretty quickly.
Right.
But in terms of, and I wish I had gotten back to some of the books that I was reading, because a lot of the business books were, telling you concepts of you've got to be in this for the long haul. So whenever I looked at a purchase, I didn't think about the purchase as right now, what does that mean for me? I looked at it from the standpoint of what is it going to mean for me a year from now, 5 years from now? So one of the concepts that I developed was anytime I looked at a tool, I looked at it as an expense over 36 months.
Okay.
So now back in that day, I had my business credit established. So I put it on the business credit card, knowing that I could spread out the payments. And my thoughts were, I'm going to be able to do probably one job a month where I can use the tool and justify that expense. And back at that time, I was dealing with a lot of customers that were using cheap cable technicians or ran their own cable, or they had me run the cable. And, I wasn't a cable tech, but I got the tool so that I could, present myself as a qualified something.
Gotcha.
know,
It gave you the validation or the to the customer that authenticity of, hey, I know what I'm doing because I went out to make sure I have what I can say that I can do.
Right. And that's another point I was actually going to bring up later. But one of the things that getting these tools did for me was give me credibility.
Right.
Because with that same tool, if we stay on the cable tester, I actually had another cable provider that was doing a job for me. And I went after them and tested the cables. And it was a female tech. It was a couple of lady cable techs, and they're great. But they looked at me and they said, what is that? I said, it's my cable tester. Don't you have one? And she pulled out the little $30 cable tester that I had previously had. That's how she was testing your cables.
Yikes.
And I said, oh no, this will tell me, so less than a month later at another job, she pulls out the
same thing.
She went and she bought it. And, it certainly lends credibility when you can show a customer, yes, it's done right. And that's what that tool did.
So circling back to exactly like you said, being able to research, because apparently in this case, in that scenario that the story you just mentioned, was she didn't even know this thing existed until you showed her. So it's one of those where, for us to do the research and so forth and so on being able to get the right tool for that. Now we always usually talk about software, but going into hardware, has there been other tools, and we all know that, the Fluke is, your forte. When you graduated to that, and maybe any other tools that you've probably used for hardware, what are some things that you've used to kind of progress as you went and progressed on other jobs and contracts or clients that you've gotten later on?
Well, one of the early tools that I got was a portable hard drive duplicator.
Okay.
And I don't have it with me. It actually broke last year. I still had it. I just didn't use it.
Okay.
But, I was from the old school where, I got the software from the vendor, whether it was, Western Digital, Seagate, and used their little software tool, connected a hard drive to a computer as a, master slave, and used their software to duplicate a drive.
Okay.
Not that it was bad technology, but it was slow. Sometimes didn't work. And I had to dedicate a computer to that. So I looked at the portable hard drive kit as a way for me to be able to go out. I could pull the drive from the customer's station. I could set up the cables and hit a button on the duplicator, and it would duplicate the drive for me. And it took about half the time.
Okay.
So if it took, 2 hours to duplicate a drive back in the day, I could get that down to 1 hour with the duplicator. So I could do the job faster and save time, make money. And
Gotcha.
So that was another tool I got early on.
Now, would something like that nowadays, for example, with the Acronuses in the world and so forth, would that also kind of be in a similar situation where possibly these portable hard drive duplicators will cut down your time versus using this, with the exception of having a dedicated PC?
Well, I have, and I would say in the last 3 years, I have made a substantial jump in hard drive duplication.
Okay.
Because 3 years ago, I did get one of what we call the hard drive toasters, the little block that you can, connect to your computer with the USB, and, be able to use that. Didn't require any software. It was pretty much a simple one-touch, operation, and they moved pretty quickly.
Okay.
And then I realized that I needed to do it a little bit faster and do more drives at once.
Okay.
So I got a step up and got the doubler 6-bay duplicator from Dycon, DYCONN. And that would allow me to basically do, multiple drives at once, because even though I don't build computers anymore, I still prep all my stations for my customers before they go on site. I have the computer shipped to my office, and customer calls up and say, I need a computer. And what I would do is I have a master drive for that customer that I can duplicate. And, anytime I had to do multiple computers, I would have to do one drive at a time to duplicate it. And, it could take 1 to 1.5 hours to duplicate a drive. I get that in, start working on the computer, pop another drive in. And I'm thinking there's got to be a way for me to do multiple drives at a time, because if a customer wanted 4 computers,
right,
that took all day. So with the Dicon, I could do 5 drive duplications at once. It still took the same 1.5 to 2 hours, but I got 5 drives done at once, as opposed to having to do them one at a time. So I could have all those drives duplicated and be working on the computers and saving, basically, let's say at the very worst or the very best, an hour per drive.
Right.
To duplicate that. Because if I could duplicate 5 drives, an hour to an hour and a half, 5 times that, I'm saving 4 hours minimum of waiting for drives to duplicate.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that would be a great tool especially for a lot of members that are walking into some of these small businesses and end up doing an infrastructure update on all their PCs. This would be a benefit to them on being able to maybe program one of those machines to how they want it, and then duplicating that across the other machines if they're ordering new computers for the entire office.
Absolutely. Yep.
No, that's great, and that's a great tip for a lot of the startups. It's one of those, like you mentioned, investing in front so that way you can save yourself time and money, and make the money on the back end from the customer.
Right.
No, that's great.
Yep.
Is there any other, and I know that we mentioned as far as Fluke, and I know me and you have had many conversations on what are the right ones. And for me, it was a big Wi-Fi issue. And I know you mentioned Fluke, and Fluke has many testers that are out there. Now, is the tester that you had first got way back when still available, or is it no longer? Or let me rephrase the question. What would you, now that you've kind of gone through the motions of testers for networking, what would be the one that you would suggest for a technician to kind of start out with? Because I know you did a Fluke episode with Jeff, but as far as for us, what would be one that you can confidently say, you know what, this would be a great one to start off with, and then that can kind of help you go through that process?
Well, let me say that 3 of the first Fluke tools that I got no longer are made. That's how long I've been using Fluke. The first one was just a little handheld micro tester. I think it was like $200 or $300, and that's what I started with, and that's what been a natural correct progression for me. But if we're talking nowadays, a tool to start with, for most people, the Link Sprinter is probably going to be where people should start. That is the entry-level tester from Fluke. The pricing is $199 to $399, depending on the version that you get. It comes in 3 flavors. But I'll be honest with you, I would probably recommend to everybody to get the 300 model.
Okay, and why is
the
that?
reason is that all of them will do basic diagnostics of network connections. Meaning, if you walk up to a jack and you want to see if it's live, you plug in the Link Sprinter, and it will connect to the network. It'll get a DHCP address, gateway, and test the internet connection. And basically, it will send all of that information to a cloud service. You could have it go to your email address. And that's what I do with my tools, is I have it go to both, so that not only will they see the green lights on the tool, but I've got an email that I could basically either forward to somebody or show them that will give them all the good information of a test that's passed or a test that's failed. But the 300 model will do a little bit more, because it will actually tell you the distance of a cable fault. So if you're looking at a cable that you don't know how long it is, and you find out it's a 200-foot long cable, but the issue is at 150 feet, that's something that you can give to the cable technician and say, here's where the fault is, and here's how far it is into the wall. And it'll do some other stuff like being able to blink a light on a network switch port. So if you've got a situation where a lot of us do, where you walk into a situation where that that cable connects to a switch, but you don't know which port it is because they're not labeled right,
or all over the place.
You can blink on the switch port and figure out which cable it is.
Oh, okay. That would be very helpful.
So that's where I would have people start. Very affordable, I think, for most techs, if not all, and a good entry point into the fluke testers.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I think with that type of investment, you just work that in your rate to eventually, because if you're going to get into that space, like you mentioned before, it's one of those where once you make that investment and now you have the tools and you are starting to become that type of point person, having it in your rate is going to justify that as well for that price point. Yep. Perfect. So I guess, I know you mentioned two great tools for our listeners. Can you tell us any time when any one of these tools or maybe another tool may have helped you kind of get you out of a situation, or that may have caused some type of disconcern with the customer, that you were able to show them, or basically with that tool, able to prove your worth, or being able to prove whatever it may have been, that this situation is not on this side, it's got to be somewhere else, et cetera, in that type of scenario?
Well, I've got a bunch of those actually with the with the newer fluke stuff. I mean, I mentioned the one cable test that I did where I got the validator, where I was able to prove that cable. Probably, I'll give two stories. The first one really quick. I was doing a subcontracting job for a company out of New York that has an office down here in Florida. And very, very big asset management company. And their techs had sent down servers and switches and had a server room built out to the nines. I mean, they probably spent more money on the network room than most of us spend on a network.
Oh, wow.
I mean, everything was run really nice. They had duplicate everything. The servers were replicated. They had dual WAN routers, dual switches, so that at any point, if one went down, everything would automatically switch over to the other. They had put in a phone IP server that was supposed to be pre-configured, but they couldn't connect to it. So they asked me to go out and kind of work with the tech on the phone, and he was going to show me how to get in and configure it and do the IP address and all of that. The problem was we couldn't figure out how to get the console up and running. So he was telling me to go grab a monitor cable, hook it up to the back, put a keyboard on here. And I probably spent half an hour to 45 minutes going through all of this and, it not working. And he was flustered. He was like, I don't know what to do. And so I finally asked him, I said, what is it that you need? And he said, well, I need to know what IP address it is, and I need to know where it is connected on the switch. And I said, oh, I can do that. So I pulled out my one network tool, my Fluke Link runner, and first thing I did was plug it into the network. I'm sorry, I pulled out my One Touch, because the One Touch actually will go out and identify all the devices on the network. And I said, well, do you know what, MAC address it should be or whatever? And so within a couple of minutes, I was able to tell him, oh, here it is. This is the IP address. And he's like, okay, great. And he's like, okay, now I need to know what switches they're connected to. And there were two network cables in the back. So I pulled out the Link Runner AT, and basically I pulled the cable out, stuck it into the Link Runner, and within 15 seconds, I'm like, okay, this cable in this port is connected to this switch at this port. Plugged it back in, took the other cable out, plugged it in. All right, so this cable is connected to this switch at this port. Plugged it back in, and he was up and running. And that whole process took less than 5 minutes after we had spent 45 minutes trying to hook up cables and monitors and keyboards and all of that stuff.
Just to get the IP.
And
Wow.
if I had known what I was doing at the very beginning, we could have been in and out of there in less than 10 minutes. So, I mean, I still got to build the hour,
Okay.
but I could have built the hour and only worked 5 minutes.
Right.
So,
It's one of those. It's always one of those times when you know you could have done it sooner, but
right.
Yeah.
Now, the other story is the big tool that I recently got that everybody's talked about is the Flute One Touch.
Okay.
And the Flute One Touch is not the Mac Daddy of the Fluke tools. There's still one more that I want, and I don't know if I could sell my car to get it. That's how expensive it is.
Okay.
But the One Touch is just a little less than that, but it does a lot with network analysis, network testing. And one of the things that I use it for is anytime that I'm going to do a cutover with an internet service provider, is I can pre-configure the One Touch with all of the IP information that the router should be. So I could give it the static IP address, the gateway, and the DNS information. And I can pre-set up all my testing because the One Touch will not only go out and get an IP address, it will make sure that there's a connection to the DHCP server, the DNS server. It'll start to identify other devices on the network. It will go out and ping websites, both TCP and ICMP. We can set up a whole bunch of other tests. And for this actual customer, I could pre-set up a connection to their mail server. And I had a mail account that I could actually test to make sure that a email could be sent out from the One Touch. So I'm sitting in the server room, and there were probably 5 technicians. Okay. Because this was a multi-project cutover. This was phones and internet together. So there was 2 data techs from the provider, there was 2 phone techs from the provider, and me. Okay. And so we're on the phone with the translations department, and they're the ones setting up all the router information and porting all the phone numbers and all of this stuff. And so when we go to do the data, I plug my router in and I get no connection. I connect to the gateway, but I can't get any further than that. And so I'm like, guys, this isn't working. And they're like, well, do you have the information in right? I'm like, yes, I do. And so we're going through, and all I have to do is hit the button to rerun the test. It's not like I've got to do a whole bunch of work. Whereas if if I had my notebook, and I had to reconfigure the notebook and redo this or, restart to make sure that I had no issues with the notebook, I just put it in, touch the button, and it should work. The test takes less than a minute to run. So I go through the information that I have in the One Touch, and he goes, okay, well, what DNS do you have in there? So I put in the DNS, and he goes, oh, well, that's your problem. Put in this DNS. So I'm like, all right. So I put in their DNS that they said, and that didn't work.
Lovely.
And so I'm baffled, and he's like, well, maybe it's your device. And I'm like, dude, it is not the device. And so they brought in a level 2 or level 3 tech or whatever, and he actually remoted into the router, and he's like, well, I can get out through the router. And I said, well, that doesn't help us. So I'm standing in the middle of the server room with my One Touch and the other 4 technicians, and they're all looking at me. And I basically turn the fluke and show it to them, and they can see the big red X's on my tester. And I'm like, guys, this is not working. And let me show you how I know it's not working. Basically, I had the previous configuration already entered in my router because I had done the previous connection and had their settings in there. All I did was take the cable, put it back into the old router that they had, plugged it in, hit test, run. Everything was green, got connection to the internet, got all my stuff done. And the 4 techs in the room all simultaneous go, yeah, his tool says you're wrong. So they got back into the router and realized that they had put in something wrong in the router and made the change, and everything was fine. But it was something where the customer was there waiting for this cutover to happen so they could have their new internet and their new phones, and nothing was happening. And if I had not had that one touch, I think that we probably would have been there another hour pointing fingers back and forth and going back. But I had the flute test. And if I had to, I could have actually printed out the report to send to them to show them that they were wrong with all the information that they had given me. So, that was a scenario where it would have been me fighting the big ISP.
Right.
Whereas once they all were able to look at my tool and say, yeah, he's telling you the truth.
Right. Exactly. I mean, and like you said, you make good points where, because you took the time and invested I'm going to go back to this, is because you took that step and invested in your business. Not only did you save time for yourself going forward from that, but now your customer knows when something like this happens again, they're going to go with your word versus the other company or whatever it may be, because they know you have the tools to decide what's going to help give the best solution for the customer.
Right.
So no, that's great stuff. So, I mean, we talked a lot about, as far as, why everyone should invest your business. And it's one of those where, yeah, this may be a little scary at first, but you want to make sure you take those investments to your business. It's going to allow you to get further than where you're at before. And I think that's really what we're trying to drive home with this. So I mean, do you have any other parting things that you want to mention, or as far as what other ideas or any other words on how our listeners can make sure to not be afraid in investing in their business?
Well, I think, again, just to go back to what I said in the beginning, is realize that even though we know that time is money, that time is time, and any time that you can save is well worth it. So if you can find something that will make your job go twice as fast, and you can still charge the same amount of money, that's going to make life so much easier. Being able to, diagnose network issues faster, being able to duplicate multiple drives faster, just having the right tools. And sometimes it's, it might just mean, taking one step up in the toolkit. You don't have to go for the, the Cadillac of all your tools. Just take the next step up that you can afford. Let that tool work for you, whether it's a year, 2 years, then take the next step up. Work smarter, work faster, and that's what's going to make your business grow. Because the faster that you can work and bill is really, I think, the key for most technicians. A lot of times, technicians just spend so much time trying to figure stuff out and trying to, look for the free, tool that's going to make it work for you, and then realize that the free tool just doesn't do enough.
Right.
We've all used the free tools. I mean, I did in the beginning, but I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I need the next step that is going to make it easier. And the thing about some of these tools is, they can help you, in a sense, come up with a system and automate stuff. The Fluke tool that I mentioned, being able to pre-configure test so that you just simply walk in, plug in the cable, hit test, and it's going to do all that stuff for you. So that, to me, does the same as a D7, where it will run through and do all the testing for you. And the other thing that it does is, people can't argue with hardware.
Right.
If you can print out a report that says this works or this doesn't work, they can try to argue with you, but you've got documented proof of whether what you've done is correct or not, and they can't argue with that. It's just basically going to make life easier, give you credibility, and make things easier down the road.
Gotcha. Yep. Work smarter, not harder, listeners. That's basically what we want to say here today. Marvin, I want to thank you for coming out, sharing your knowledge with us, and as far as how we can handle and taking that next step with our business. If our listeners wanted to get a hold of you, what is the best way to reach you?
Well, just simply look for maninthevan.net. That'll take you to my website, and just give me a phone call or pop me an email.
Sounds good. All right, guys, we're going to go on and move on to the next topic here. Thanks a lot, Marvin. Have a good one.
All right.
All righty. Time to mention our second sponsor today, which is Kabuto. Now, we all know what Kabuto does. It is a software that you can install on your clients' systems that will alert them anytime there is an issue with their computer, and it pops up a window with your contact information. So it makes sure that they come back to you when they have problems. They're really working on expanding their platform to include a lot of other features and a lot of other ways for you to help out your clients when they do contact you for help. And it works perfectly in tandem with their Tech Suite product, which helps you automate your repair process. So between Tech Suite and Kabuto, you can really work on some of those issues you guys were talking about with automating your processes and delivering a service to be able to charge a higher price because you have these types of services that you're offering your clients that kind of put you above the competition. And speaking of competition, we still have the competition open. How would you integrate Kabuto into your current service offerings? So let us know whether you're currently using it or whether you would like to use it in the future. I know a lot of you guys are trying to find ways to automate your process. So let us know how you would use Kabuto to help with your automation, to help with your client retention processes, all of that stuff. We've had some good responses so far, and we want to hear from some more of you. So head over to the show notes for this episode, computerbusinesspodcast.com/episode 41. Let us know how you would integrate Kabuto into your current service offerings. If you win, you'll get a free year of the growth plan of Kabuto, an entire year for free. And the contest ends on the 19th. So that's coming up real soon. So let us know how you would use Kabuto. And we thank Kabuto for being a sponsor. Did you have something to say?
Yep. And I was just going to say for the audience, just to understand that, we want to know how you're going to package this thing. What creative ways that you believe you can integrate this with either a current offering that you're having right now, or you're just looking at doing something new. The creative response of what we want to see is really how you're going to integrate this and package it. So if you don't have a current service or you have a current service, how could this benefit you? And that's really what we want to drive home with this on this contest is we really want to see how this is really going to benefit you guys.
Yep. And we're going to look at those responses, and that might spark or help someone else, who's trying to think of how they want to integrate this with their own services. And this is going to help, a lot of people. It's going to help you to just kind of take a moment to think about how you would integrate it and come up with a plan for that. So lots of good stuff to come out of this. We look forward to hearing from you guys on this. We thank Kabuto for doing this and for being a sponsor for so long. And you could check them out at kabuto.io. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the computer business tool.
It's time to open the Computer Business Toolbox.
All right, today for the tool, Paco has a cool service that's going to help us manage our time and track our time. So what do you got, Paco?
Yep. So the tool that I'm talking today is Toggl, Toggl. And it's one of the integrated tools that work with our CRM system. The reason why we really like these guys is because they have a tiered system on their product. And what's great about it is it helps manage logging your time. So if you ever are on site or you're really just considering and trying to figure out, man, how long does it really take me to get a job done? These guys have a web and an iOS and Android app, and it basically allows you as a timer to kind of keep track of individual jobs and log it into their system. And the great part about this is, especially like what I mentioned before with our CRM Repair Shopper, you can actually import the time that you spend on a particular job or add an on-site for a client, and import the time that was spent there and charge it directly to the invoice. And once that's set up for the time that you have, let's say, preset to X amount per hour, it'll automatically generate that for the invoice, and you can go ahead and send the invoice and charge them right then and there. So it's been a really great feature on allowing us to really keep track of the times and understanding where we're taking a little bit longer on certain jobs and where we need to kind of speed up and really improve on some of the process to get that timing down. And it's really helpful, especially when on site, for those who are using, let's say, the computer business kit, where we're just signing in on the work orders. We really want to be able to give something tangible to the client that shows the amount of physical time we were there, matching up to what our hourly rate may be if we're on site.
And you can also use it to track other things like time spent researching or time spent working on your business. So you can get an idea of, after a while, what is the percentage of time you work on your business as opposed to working in your business. So are you taking the time to work on marketing? Are you taking the time to work on your processes and all of that stuff? Or are you just kind of putting out fires all day and spending all of your time working on client issues, so that it'll kind of just give you a window into that, and then you can make a decision, am I spending too much time on one thing or another? And then you can kind of adjust that as needed.
Absolutely.
So it's a good window. It's a good way to just get a window into how that works. And I love any service that integrates into another service I use. So that, again, the word automation, it helps keep things connected, helps keep things automated so that you track time here, and then it goes into Repair Shopper there, and then it all works together seamlessly. So definitely check that out, Toggl, TOGGL.com. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Let's keep the conversation going, though. Head on over to our show notes page, computerbusinesspodcast.com/episode 41. Let us know what you think about the survey results, about the ideas that Marvin had about investing in the tools. What tools do you guys use? How do you track your time? All of that stuff. We want to hear back from you in the show notes. Don't forget, you can also send us feedback or emails or questions that you have. Send those to computerbusinesspodcast@gmail.com or visit computerbusinesspodcast.com and fill out the contact form there. We love to hear from you. We want to get some more questions that we can respond to on the show. So definitely hit us up on that email address, or you can follow us on any of the social media platforms and ask the question there. Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and LinkedIn. We have links to all of our social media profiles on the show notes page.
And guys, if you listen to the podcast on iTunes, be sure to give us a shout out and leave a review. We love to hear your feedback. Every comment helps our ranking on the iTunes store so that the podcast can be found, and it also better helps other techs that are out there. Also, please use our Amazon link to purchase your next order of equipment for your business. We do have an Amazon banner at the bottom of the show notes, and you can always go to computerbusinesspodcast/support. When you use our Amazon link, your price always stays the same, but a small percentage does come back to support the show.
And finally, don't forget to check out our awesome sponsors, Kabuto.io and NinjaMSP.com. Thank you all for listening to the Computer Business Podcast. This is Matthew Rodella.
And this is Paco LeBron.
Saying here's to your success.